Psychotechnologies Live.
Welcome to an unhinged episode of Psychotechnologies Live.
Unhinged.
I am your host, Daniel, and I have not gotten very many REM cycles in the last 2 weeks. So this is all about newborn and my mindset. I think the listener is going to have to try to pick up on the subtleties of the being unable to form coherent thoughts and complex ideas and directions. So if this isn't your cup of tea, feel free to jump to the next episode. But if you want some like inside craziness of sleep deprivation and what that affects on, has that effect on the
what that affects on? Yeah, okay. Tell me something. How many days? Like, how old is this baby?
Okay, so the baby is a bunch of days old.
Okay, we're about 2 weeks in, I think.
But 5 weeks. No, it's been 5 weeks, since he got here. But the problem is that maternity problems, and my wife has gone back to work for almost the last 2 weeks. So I've been on baby care virtually 24/7. And I have 2 kids, and one of them is newborn. So it's like I get some sleep, but the problem is there's constant interruptions. And so I don't get
interrupting your sleep.
Yes.
Right.
The sleep has constant interruptions. And so the problem is that I don't get a complete REM cycles.
I'm surprised you're not like delusional, like sort of like losing touch with reality at this point. He says I am. I very much am.
I'm very good at like doing what's needed to be done while losing touch with reality.
Right.
Because like, part of the psychotechnologists, or like the way at least I practice, like the shamanism, which by the way, I've gone and accepted my role as a shaman. So that's awesome, which we could talk about in another episode. But yeah, like there is like all reality is all like messed up. And like in the real world, reality is like in our political and cultural climate, reality is messed up. And so like I just like kind of always live my life in a messed up reality. So
right. So you're kind of like going with it, or like, I mean, I guess
like hallucinations are not that big a deal.
Well, yeah, I guess my next question is like, what are you actually like? What are you seeing, or how do you know you're not getting enough sleep? Like, what's the evidence that you're experiencing?
Yeah. So there's there's a bunch of stuff that's been happening. So like previously, like I'm like talking to people and they're like, oh, would you want to do this? Would you like to do that? Right. Like planning or what's going to happen. And I realized like, I don't really have the ability to plan or to like predict the future or decide what I want. Is
this like, so how many days ahead can you see from like right now? If I'm like, hey, do you want to do something 3 weeks from now? Like how close can you get to that?
So I have good systems, right? So if you're like, hey, you want to do something in 3 weeks, I'm just going to look at my calendar and say yes or no, right?
Right. But if I say, do you want to hang out tomorrow? You'll be like, oh, do you feel like hanging out tomorrow?
My calendar. I'm just going to look at my calendar and decide, right?
Right. Okay.
Actually, I kind of like, I know what I'm doing tomorrow, and I know what I'm doing Saturday.
Right. So 2 days away.
2 days.
But beyond that.
But I usually don't know what's going on. Like my calendar does. But I know.
Okay.
Next week's gonna be brutal. But like, there's a lot of like planning and stuff, and it's like very difficult for me to sort of just plan basic stuff. Like, oh, what do you want? Like, because like I can't like taking social factors into consideration and like how I'm gonna feel and progression and stuff. And like you kind of gotta imagine it, right? So you make believe things, and we do this all the time. This is very normal, and like a normal functioning human like spends half the time in pretend land, right? So it's like planning or imagining or thinking about things, like that's all pretend, and like that's very difficult to do. It's almost too easy to do, where it just happens sometimes, and like I lose touch of reality, and then I just start imagining things that aren't real.
Is this like give me something to go on, like what's it like, or give me an example?
So like now during the conversation, I'm keep having flashes where it feels like the dreams are trying to come through, where but
Like
not like,
images of things, or like
yeah, sometimes images or like kinesthetics. I'm pretty kinesthetic based, so
hmm,
I get a lot of that stuff going on. So I just like start feeling things that like it's just like it's pretty normal dream stuff. It's just you're not really supposed to do that while you're awake.
right.
But like sleep deprivation starts, you know, like that starts to happen. Um, and so
Hmm.
like there's like a constant like bringing myself back to here, bring myself like, oh, we're talking, we're online, we're doing stuff, like you're here with me, and there's not like starting to daydream and then just like go in unhinged territory.
Right. I mean, you do seem like you're doing okay right now. I don't know. Are you like injecting all the energy since we hit the record button, or
Yeah, being live gives me energy. There's something like really interesting about that, and we haven't had an episode in a while,
yeah,
so there
yeah.
is like this like
Yeah.
refreshing energy going on.
Yeah, it's kind of like I was like, we should definitely record something now because it's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's been a couple
It's been a
weeks.
vibe camp. It's been
Stuff
a
have
bunch of
happened.
stuff.
Yeah, we did some interesting things as well. See, it's the thing is like I'm like, oh yeah, what stuff is like the wall. Also, like the other thing is the walls between the different realities are starting to like become uh too permeable. So like there's like
So
different
like
parts of my
different friend
life.
groups, or
Yeah, like different friend groups and parts of my life, like oh, we're doing this, and like to transfer information across them is there's always like like calculations where it's um like you do private things with people and then they don't necessarily want you to talk about that stuff on the internet.
of course.
And so there's like calculations on like how do I say it, so it's like change names or just share feelings or how it
Mm.
is, and so that's um yeah, so like things just sort of
Things
it's like
things are
yeah.
blurry right now. I think for me, when I do like coaching stuff, I'm in an explicit container that I'm the coach. But you don't really
Right.
have one of those. You're just like in mixes of friends doing experimental therapeutic stuff. And obviously confidence for friends, but also it's kind of blurry because it's like friends.
Yeah, I
And
don't
it's
really do
even
the
worse right now
coaching
because you're
thing.
sleep deprived. So like the separation between this and that might be tricky.
uh yeah, and like because like you're a friend, like you're
Mm,
my friend, and so there's things that I would share with you in private that I wouldn't share online.
of course.
um
But everything's blurry. So really the sleep deprived is like things are a little bit blurry. And so you're needing to be a bit more cautious because you might just let slip something that you would not feel proud of later.
yeah, so what I do instead of like for the cautiousness is I shrink this is what I like my normal tactic for dealing with when I'm not all there. So
Mm.
like sleep deprivation or if I'm on like psychedelics or if I'm feeling angry, like strong
Right,
emotions.
right, right. I'm not like my centered self if I'm angry.
Yeah, or the other one is like if there's like dangerous situations going on, or like if I get like nervous, like something's happening, is I shrink the world, right? So I'm not trying to live in the whole world. I'm just I shrink the reality of what's going on, and then there's less to keep track of, and it's like the sort of like that small bubble.
Mhm.
So this is a very like prevalent technique for the kids, right? So now I'm like much more no, actually no, this is like what we're talking about. So like when I have the kids, sometimes there's we're in parking lots, right? Like that's the thing we do with the kids. So when we go somewhere, there's a parking lot, and so the parking lots are kind of dangerous. I
Right.
was gonna
There's
say they give me
moving
anxiety,
cars.
but like yeah, like you have kids in the parking lot, like that's a dangerous thing to do. So you're always trying to shrink you're trying to shrink like the amount of variables that can happen. So
Mhm.
like generally, the way we're living our lives is we're trying to uh, be generative and have as many possibilities exist at all times. And so in these situations, it's the opposite. It's like very closed, right? So I don't want my kids to be essentially like kind of doing anything that's not, within these very small things.
Mhm.
And that's not the vast majority of parenting. That's just like very like parking lot. I want them, so I'll like get everything like I'll get the car, the stroller together. I'll get everything packed while they're still in the car,
Right.
When normally if I'm parked somewhere else where there's no cars around, then I just take him out, let him run around and get stuff together.
Mm. Right. So
So
there's a maintaining of control because
yeah.
this is more of a dangerous situation.
Yeah. So you're just like cutting off as many vectors of possibilities as possible, so that the only things that are going to happen are the things that you exactly want to happen. And this is very common parenting, right? Like parents get very like controlling or, you know, on top of things and like, oh, you can't do this, because they want things to go how they want them to go when they don't have the ability to deal with the situation properly. And so, sorry, not when they don't have the ability to respond well.
Right.
So one of the things that I've noticed about the sleep deprivation is my ability to respond to novel situations is not as good. Right. Like it's just because it's hard for me to like think things through.
Right.
So I am constantly like more or less reacting to what's happening, and it's hard for me to like get on top of it and like create, you know, beautiful scenarios.
Stretch thin.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that, because I think the stretch thin analogy is when you're trying to do a lot, and like the way I'm responding is I do less and less and less. So like I'm still kind of like generally in control of what's going on, but
my locus of control is smaller, or the world that I'm trying to like manage is just like I'm just trying to get through today in a like healthy, happy way. I'm not trying to like live forever in this day.
Yeah. And so like there are like kind of opportunities that are showing up that I'm not able to really capitalize on. And that makes me sad. But you know, it's sort of paying attention. I'm like, okay, this could probably wait a week or two and it wouldn't be that bad. And then there'll be more opportunities again in the future. So it's like, I guess like the down times, like this is, I guess, like the more bottom of the trough. Not that I'm sad exactly, like or anything bad has happened. It's just like my ability, like my capabilities are very restricted. I feel like I missed something important there.
I kind of makes me curious. What is like if you're like I can only do 5 things in a day? What is still in the locus of control? Like
so
like eating, showering, sleeping, or like it's got to be a little bit more.
Actually, no.
Oh, even that's out. Eating is cut. Sleeping is cut.
No. Yeah. Those are all like secondary, right?
Okay.
So the like the priorities are the kids' safeties, and then the secondary is like, I guess, the relationship or like that sense of safety or something.
For you or for
them?
Oh, the relational, like secure attachment sort of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So like number one, they have to be actually actually safe, and you know, which includes food, etc. And then the second one is they need to feel safe and secure.
Right. Like a crying baby is actually probably safe, but not feeling safe.
Right.
But you actually have to soothe their crying so that they are both feeling safe, are safe, and feel safe.
Yeah.
For example, if there's a loud noise, they're not unsafe, but they may feel unsafe.
Yeah. Right. And so that's like the second thing after.
That's interesting, because like maybe another way to say that is like the concrete world, like the physical world, and then the subtle world, the emotional, and then obviously the causal world. You want them later. You want them you want you as well to be feeling good around the whole thing. Like third priority, like further out and like finer details.
Yeah. So the third priority is like lasting through the week so that I can survive. I can survive and like still like kind of be on top of things and not get like, because like if I'm too unsafe, then they're unsafe.
Right. As in, if you're too sleep deprived and you're not driving well, that's very, very bad.
Right.
So you've got to take care of yourself to make possible their like future light cone.
Yeah. And so there are things where I'm like, oh, I should go out and do this thing, right? And then I'm like, no, I don't really want to drive if I don't have to. Like it's very stressful. And so like the short distances aren't so bad, and the drive, it like driving the routines that I do all the time isn't so bad. But I wouldn't want to do a long trip.
Right.
That would start to be unsafe, I think.
Right. Interesting. Okay, so it makes sense to go physical then emotional, that sort of like moving in that direction.
Yeah, because the way I like to think about it, like, because these are like priorities, right? You're doing for kids, so like you want, they have to physically be in a safe location, because you want to deal like anything that you could, whatever's the hardest to fix is like the thing that you do take care of first. So like physical, like if the kid,
as in if the kid breaks a bone or something, that's not fixable.
Yeah, like that's a lot harder, right? Like if there's poo everywhere, that sucks, but like it's only going to take you like an hour to deal with it,
right?
And like another hour to like recuperate from that trauma. But
right. So the like, yeah, it's interesting that there's a like, I'm in my head, I'm drawing like a Maslow's pyramid, as well as the like what you describe as maybe things that are more reversible, or things that are more like if things get dirty, they can be cleaned, but if things break, they can't be. They need to be repaired. Like it's harder, it's more work to repair a thing than it is to maybe prevent it from breaking.
Right. And so there's like this, like the stroller is like a priority, but it's like making sure that doesn't get destroyed. But the kid is like much higher priority than the stroller.
For sure.
But then the stroller is over like the snacks. And so there's like a very like strong hierarchy of what the priority is. And then so like sometimes you lose snacks or something, right? And like that's not great. Like you don't want to like lose your food all the time, but
at least you didn't lose the kid.
Yeah. Like it's a lot easier to deal with like not being hungry than it is to like lose a kid.
Oh no, I left the baby on the bus. Yes.
Yeah, like I left a ball in the park the other day and I feel sucky about that. But I didn't leave a kid in the park.
Yeah, interesting. There's a whole thread in here of like using strollers to raise kids, where I suspect that if you carry the kid everywhere, they get more like skin on skin contact. But then also that gets really hard to do with multiple kids. You can't carry all the kids everywhere all the time, right? Until they can walk, right? It doesn't work.
Oh, to like walk. Yeah. So my oldest is like, I could not carry him everywhere. Although I'm hitting the gym, so I'm getting much easier to carry him now than it was 2 months ago.
Right.
But, yeah, like you want to get them. What? Raising kids in strollers?
Oh, there's a right. So, how do I? This is like a deep dive. There's some like core philosophical ideas about parenting, right? And one of them is don't use a stroller, and like it's like an extension of don't put the kid in front of a TV, right? Don't use a crutch like that, like.
Yeah, you want to. Okay, so the TV
like and partly it's because parents will sometimes use the stroller because they don't want to walk the kid and like take time. Like when you walk with a little kid, it takes time because they walk at a snail's pace because they look at everything. And so one way to shortcut that is just shove them in a stroller. And that seems like worse for their development, but better for your sanity, and clearly an important trade-off.
So there is a trade-off for that. I'll talk about that because I like it's like I'm developing that philosophy. So the trick to that one that I use is you treat the walk as the destination.
Right. So for your sanity, this is, and also the enjoyment of the kid.
Yeah. So like so like it definitely has happened multiple times where I'm like, okay, like let's go to the park. And then, we spend 2 hours trying to go to the park.
Right.
And then we're done.
Right. And then by that time you like go home. Yeah. You got to the park and you didn't really stay at the park but also going to the park is a fascinating experience. If you're a 3-year-old, if you've never done that before, at least the first couple times.
The first lots of times. I mean, like he's my oldest is like a year and a half. He's like, like almost 2, let's say a year and 3/4. So like a lot of the times, he's been 1 for a while. And he's walking, and so he can walk usually So like we at the beginning we're doing like a trade-off. So like we walk there until he gets tired and then he gets in the stroller.
Mm.
But like recently we've been doing actually he has a bike and he loves the bike. So, we bike to the park, but we don't like, the first time we went, we didn't make it to the park.
Right. Of
The
course.
park was like 15 minutes away and it took us like 2 hours to get halfway there. But it also doesn't matter, right?
Right. It's you as the adult who's like, if we're going to the park, we need to get to the park.
Right.
And that's your like subjective opinion on like parks are more important than the walk to the park.
Right.
That you have to kind of like humble yourself down to like, nope, we're just doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a nice analogy is also the kid's birthday party, where like 2-year-old kids would like love just a giant sand pit and nothing else. Like they don't actually want a fancy birthday cake. They don't actually want a bunch of guests necessarily. They just want something like rather simple. And as an adult, sometimes I've seen adults who are like trying to make a fancy birthday party for 2 years. And it's like, no, they don't actually need all that. They just need the things the 2-year-olds love.
Yeah.
In like maximum supply.
Yeah.
Like, who wants a stick? Yay! And they all like kind of get sticks.
Well, yeah.
Sticks are dangerous for kids. I'm not going to advocate for that, but like stuff like that, like simple things are really, really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is like, because that's like a really cool thing that like, I think psychedelics have really, really introduced me to, because one of the things about psychedelics is like, if you do them, everything looks new again. And the kids everything is new. It doesn't look new again. It is just new for the first time,
right? But like reminding yourself of that very young kid mindset comes through the psychedelics.
Yeah. And so like experiencing that and being like, actually this is really fun and I really genuinely enjoy it, even though it's maybe not something that other adults would appreciate. But having that as like, but the kids are just like, well, like who cares? Like if the kid's having the best time of his life, then like you're doing it right. Like if a party and the kid has like a great time, then you're doing it right. And so it doesn't need to be like that sophisticated unless you're leveraging the party for like social standards.
Yeah. I'm the best parent because I like look at me. I'm the best parent.
No,
or like come to my kid's party because you're my employee and we're trying to do a business deal here. And like,
there's like something about that of like the parent, like the parents do the parties in ways that like signal other parents stuff.
Right.
And like to be like, that's fair. Like there is like,
is this like the party without balloons because we're more environmental than you are and therefore we're signaling?
I don't know. They love balloons.
Kids do love balloons. Yeah.
I have it's part of my dad vest. I got balloons. They're just like unblown up balloons. So
just
more for
like round ones or like long skinny ones?
No, just round ones.
No, more
like
round balloons. Yeah.
All balloons.
Right.
And so it's just like whenever that's another thing, like part of like the dad gear is like I just get all this stuff together.
There's something
like,
here. Tell me more about dad gear.
Oh my God. I got a van and now it's like pinnacle dad gear. I need like more shelving, but I have like I have like a variety of snacks and drinks. And then I got a bunch of toys. So I went to Costco and we got this like package and it has sand toys and water toys.
Okay. Yep.
And we got balls, and then I have this vest that I wear sometimes if I'm like wanting to like be like low grade. And so it's got balloons, like unblown up balloons, and it's got just like some other random harmonica, like just like random, like some random small toys, fidget spinner.
Yeah, okay. I'm seeing something here. What I'm imagining is like waiting room solutions for a waiting room, right? You just blow up a balloon and your kids like chase it around for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah. Like we've literally been in waiting rooms and then he gets bored. And so I just blow up a balloon. You do a whole thing, right? You take the balloon, you're like, balloon, it's like balloon. And then you go, like you do like a big deal about it. And then you tie it up and then you just give it to him. And now he's just chasing a balloon for you. Yeah. For like half an hour. And it's the best. And you just have to like, the thing I do is like, I just don't do balloons in the house.
Right. Oh, so
right?
they're
So
a
it's like
special
it's
outdoor
always
novelty.
novel. Yeah. And so
Ah,
we only get them at like parties or like if my parenting calculations have gone in such a way that he has to be in a place that's unpleasant for him or he's bored. It's like you're always like, okay, at least got the balloons going on.
interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. So ever since primary school, sort of ended up carrying elastic bands on my wrist. And that's just like now they're hair ties, hair bands, but they, for a very long time, I just needed like a little stimulation sort of thing. And like we
Yeah.
do it with like fidget toys now for all the kids who recognize they can't. You see, I got one here. It sits on my desk. But it's like for all the kids who can't stay still, you've come prepared. You've come with a plan of like
Yeah.
knowing these things, moments will happen.
Yeah.
What else? What
Yeah.
else goes into dad kit? The kit.
So I have these like apple snacks, like which are awesome. It's just essentially like pureed apples or other fruits.
Mhm.
And then these little packages and so like they just last forever. So you just like keep them in the vest pockets or just like in like just everywhere. And then like when he gets upset because he hasn't eaten in a little bit, then you can just give it to him.
It's
And he
interesting.
likes it.
I'm thinking of the cargo pants with like multiple pockets sort
Oh
of
my
thing.
god, I'm wearing cargo pants right now.
Right.
I'm wearing no, I'm wearing cargo shorts.
Right. So that's the thing. When I was a teenager, I picked up cargo shorts as the thing that was like awesome to wear. And I'm seeing I've sort of gone away from that right now, but I'm seeing the return, like when there's like
Yeah.
more things to carry again, the return to the
Oh my
being
god,
well
yeah.
resourced.
Because like stuff just shows up. So like you need to like I like to grab the wipes. So I have like little wipe packages around.
Right, of course. Carry
So
a couple
there's
tissues. Like
always a
that's
wipe somewhere.
Mhm.
Pacifiers. Because like sometimes you need the pacifier, but like especially now he's getting to that age where we're trying to like see, like the less he uses it, the better, I think.
Mm. I think
Um
also there's some jaw formation stuff. So yes,
yeah, that's what
the
they
less you
say.
use it, the better. Like
Yeah, that's what they say. I saw this one guy. He said he gives his kids bones to chew on.
bones, as in like
like,
he's sort of like cooked and
like beef
prepared bones, like a dog bone style, like but for your kid.
Yeah, like let him
Yeah,
try to get the marrow out.
I feel like that could be fun. Although I feel like they don't keep as well as some of the dried.
That's the problem, right? Like, yeah, like I'm afraid like that stuff can spoil and things. The pacifier is all plastic, so you just wash it.
Yeah, I mean, there's true toys that are like bone or resin, often like the teething toys.
Yeah, the teething toys we got like silicone and stuff usually,
Right.
or plastic as
Yeah.
well.
I just don't
Which
like
I
plastic.
don't necessarily.
I'd rather bits of wood than bits of plastic, depending on if they're going to splinter,
Wood,
of
yeah.
course.
He likes toothpicks as well, which is bizarre to me.
Like he's just fascinated by them or playing with them.
Yeah,
or-
so I do toothpicks sometimes as like a stimming or
Mm.
like instead of just like eating junk food, it's chewing on toothpicks. And I guess like he sees it and then he wants to do it, so he takes it,
Right.
does it, and like bites
This
it
is
and
an
plays with
instance
it.
of like the little toy laptop for your cat.
Yeah.
Like, he
Oh
just
yeah,
wants to copy you.
I got a decoy mouse.
Oh, nice.
So
Have you got decoy phones yet? Because you can
I have
essentially
an
get
old phone.
yeah, like a phone roughly this big with like a picture of apps on it, and they use it like a phone.
Yeah, I got an old phone that
Yeah.
I've like leave around for when he tries to copy, and I got decoy keyboards as well.
Mm-hmm.
That one's cool because it was wireless, and so having two keyboards. So if I'm on one and then he starts like grabbing it, I can just turn it off and go to the other one, and then he gets to like do all that stuff.
Right.
But he's like kind of like figuring it out.
Yeah, I feel like there's only a matter of time before he works out that this one doesn't seem to control the computer anymore. Also, suspiciously, does he want your attention? And your attention's currently on the keyboard, so he thinks if he takes the keyboard, he'll get your attention.
No,
and so
I don't
then
think so.
when you give him the keyboard, he still doesn't get the thing he wants. He only gets the keyboard. I don't know.
Well,
This is
Okay,
getting in the mind of a kid eventually.
Yeah. So let's go down this route then. There's like two things going on, I think. So the first off, you mentioned that he figures it out. The figuring it out thing, parents are afraid of this all the time. Like, oh, their kids figured this thing out, and now there's like this whole host of problems. It's true
I
that
would
when they
say
figure stuff
don't
out,
lie to your kid.
yeah. So first off, I never lie to him. Like at least on purpose. Sometimes
Right.
I do say things that I'm like, no way, it's not like this. It's like this.
Oh man.
But so them figuring it out, like when they figure out like next stage development, it opens a whole host of problems, and that's true.
Oh man, I had one kid ask me, "What is an apology?"
Oh.
And it's like that's a really hard thing to explain if you really want to try and explain it to a kid. Like,
well, you're sorry, like you did something wrong and you feel bad, and so you want to repair the relationship, and so you acknowledge what you did as wrong.
Right. Right, but that's like it's not like an apology is. It's like that's 3 sentences later, 4 sentences. If you're too tired, it's like you want me to dig up the answer to the like what the hell is an apology on like a yeah they do. They're curious. Okay, you got to go for it.
This is the thing. Like why like so like I'm like if you're like there's sometimes there's like in the moments and you're sleep deprived and you can't do it, and then like finally you do it the next day or whatever. But like in general, like adults should know what apologies are.
But and it should know in a way unless that explains it to a kid, and also it like
unless you're perfect and you only interact with perfect people.
But there's also like if you were about to like enforce an apology, like you have to apologize to your sibling for something you did wrong, in a way, there's a problem here, right? We actually don't want forced apologies in the world in general. We want healthy.
All over the place. I feel like we're in like 10 different things. Like we're 10 different open brackets.
Okay. Let's roll back a couple. We'll save apology for another time.
Okay. So back to the keyboard. So they learn this stuff and they figure it out. And like that opens a whole host of problems, but it also solves a bunch of problems because now they're at the next developmental stage.
Right.
So you can go down and this is like really important for parents to remember is like your job isn't to like boss the kid into like doing nothing. Like your job is to facilitate the environment for them to I guess you have 2 jobs. Facilitate the environment for them to become like really good adults, and then the second job is like your role as just like your personal role as the parent, which is to have that like good parent-child relationship.
Right.
So it's like the external internal, right? So you've got to manipulate the environment. I think just because like this is the way our society is set up. I think when we get more meta modern, it's going to be a lot easier to like it's going to be more collective to be able to build that environment, and then you can more just focus on your role of like like the formative, right? Like so the kids like imprint, and then they're like, oh, this person is my parent and all this stuff, and like you need to be open and loving and kind and like good qualities and all that stuff. So you need to like do both of those things.
Right.
All right. What was all the other stuff you said now? So the switching of the keyboard. So now he can start to try to be part of like, he can see the screen and he can, instead of just grabbing it, we work together to get the thing that he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it shifts from that to like, he's much more partnership, because then he's not just like trying to push buttons. He's trying to get a thing done through pushing buttons.
It's interesting. You've even shifted to like participatory engagement.
Yeah.
As opposed to like singular engagement or.
Yeah. Like, because that's what you want to do. If they're just doing like random stuff, which they do, because like they just want to do stuff. And also adults, like also I like to do that sometimes. You need to you want to get them, you want to shift to participatory, where you're doing it together.
Engagement.
Yeah, like that would be the next level. Like, so you're either waiting for that to happen. Usually at the beginning, you're waiting for them to like play it out.
Right. So this is, if it was like a ball, this is the difference between they're just trying to get to the ball and they're actually trying to like roll the ball back and forth between you and the kid. Where we're just getting to the ball is singular, and like rolling the ball back and forth is participatory.
You're right. So there's a couple stages there. So they want to get to the ball, touch it, hold it, and then they'll play with it by themselves, and then they want to play with it.
They'll like throw it away, and then they'll like go get it, and then they'll throw it away and they'll go on their own. And
Yeah,
then
and they don't
later,
want you involved, right? Like this is
right,
none of your business. Go away. This
right.
is my
This is
toy.
my ball and my toy, and you can't take it from me because that's mean.
Yeah. But then there's like they get bored pretty quickly because they don't know all the games, right? And so you do some of the games with them, and they're like, "Oh, that's a fun game. I'm gonna do it. That's by myself." And then they start to realize, like, "Oh, playing with someone else
Is a step up or something.
is more fun. Like it's more
Yeah.
fun to play with someone else than just play by yourself." And so then you're like building that bottom up so that they're not playing with other people because they have to. They're playing with other people because they want to.
Mm.
And then it's so much easier because then like when you do kids that way, it's very hard like initially, but it's like long term, like you're not building up karma.
Right.
So like you're not building up
bad
like,
habits.
yeah, you're not building up bad habits. You're not having to like compromise. You're just like the kid wants to do things. And so they just do things. And then it's like emptiness. there's like nothing there. It's just like you guys are just having fun. And
Right. They're not like
doing
trying to
stuff.
steal a thing because, like, one day you took the ball from them. And so later they're like, 5 years later, they're trying to take back whatever you have. They're not, they didn't learn that that's a good thing to do because you didn't like decide to take the ball from them.
Yeah. And like, it's like, like it winds up being like, I think a lot of relationships, families, things, groups, like there winds up being a lot of subtext that everyone has to deal with and manage.
Right.
But
if you don't install the mistakes in the first place, if you can avoid many of them, then it doesn't install.
If you let them play their stuff out, then they play it out and then they get stuck and then you're there. And so so like it's like the subtext becomes like, this is fun, or we like each other, we're having fun, or we're learning, or even if there's a problem, it's like, okay, well, whatever problem is happening at the time is the problem that's happening at the time, and that's the thing that we're dealing with. And that's what I think, like relationships, you kind of want to work through as much subtext as you can.
Right. Especially when it's like low stakes. For a little kid, it's pretty low stakes if if they do or don't get the ball.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing for the parents, it often feels very high stakes.
Right.
Because like say for instance, like climbing, right? So we go to play place sometimes and then he'll have like trouble climbing a thing, right? And so I see a lot of parents, they'll just like, they'll take their kids and they'll start moving the kids. And it is very anxiety provoking because they're like they see the kid is struggling, not able to do it, and then that means that they can't play. But like,
is this an instance of like frustration in the parent that they can't tolerate, and so they're weakening their child's learning experience because of their internal frustration?
Yeah, so that's the thing that's happening. But the story I would say that sort of makes, like the story that I use for myself and for the other parents, is them trying to climb up something is them playing. And so like that's the thing that parents forget. They think like, oh, you have to use the toy how the toy maker intended, or you're not doing it right. And I'm like, no. The other thing, it's the child. The child is like trying to figure stuff out and like happily engaged in activity. Then give me a second.
That's how it is. Well, I mean, I think that this is where I would name like the cardboard box as like a big and amazing and innovative toy. Like the toy comes in the cardboard box, but also there's a cardboard box, and cardboard boxes are like the best toy ever. So I don't know why you would ever worry about, no, kid, you have to play with the toy, not the cardboard box, because cardboard boxes are great.
Yeah, and they'll get bored of the box.
Yeah, and then they'll go play with the toy eventually.
Yeah, or the other thing is like it's a free toy. Like, what do you get? What do you care? Like, right. You
have to play with didn't buy one toy, you bought a toy and the cardboard box. You bought two toys.
You bought two toys, so like, good job. And like literally every box, like we said, I mean, like he's old too. He's like old for that now, so he's not less interested in that. But like all balls, rocks are balls now.
He's probably the right age for masking tape, or like. So I did this with another kid. I bought like 5-10 rolls of masking tape, and you could go to the hardware store and buy different colored ones. There's like blue and green and purple and yellow. Anyway, you can then they can build stuff with the cardboard boxes, and then you have like a whole nother iteration of like everything you can do with a cardboard box, because you can like tape them together. It's a
sounds
very
like
masculine toy as well because you're building a thing, but it's also the materials are cheap because it's cardboard, so you can just buy more tape and give them to him. And then, like in the beginning, the kid I tried it with was a little young, so couldn't actually tear masking tape so easily.
Yeah,
but now it's like been a couple months since then, so it's old enough to tear their own tape.
Okay,
but like kids don't need fancy toys, right? They just need. I mean,
there's like a couple.
When I bought that tape, I was of the perspective this kid needs to make things, and like making toys or play with like raw material style.
Like creative, yeah.
Yeah, creative play.
Yeah, so it's interesting because like there's like I think a couple of archetype toys that they like. So he's got like cars, which are
let's go archetype toys.
Yeah, so these are the ones I figured out, and I have a boy, and he's a very like boy, like he's
very masculine,
which is
boy.
funny because like I'm not that into all these things. So he loves like sports, so balls.
Yeah.
So he needs balls. We got like shovel and buckets. Is it like a big one?
Yep.
And then
so the cardboard box is totally like.
And then cars
and trucks.
He's not that into. Yeah. So the cars are like things with wheels, essentially. So like cars, trucks, motorcycles, airplanes.
Is it things with wheels or things with moving parts?
So there is things with moving parts, but the thing is, for a lot of the stuff that's moving parts, it's depending on what it is, they get bored very quickly. Okay.
For example, if you had something that was like boat shaped and it had like a steering wheel that could turn, it would like eventually maybe they come back with imagination and they play a boat. But first they just spin the thing.
Yeah. So the cars, they can take it and they can roll it across things. And that's incredibly fascinating for them.
Right.
So
I wonder if it's like just beyond their cognitive perception, like to understand what a wheel is doing when it turns, and like when you move the thing, like they just can't quite visualize it yet because they're still small.
I don't know. And
so there's some extra fascination because they're like making sense of it. Anyway, maybe. Cars. So cars are an archetype.
So cars, so like essentially it's things with wheels, right?
Right.
So and then and then like scooping. So like he's got the shovel and like it's like one of his favorites.
Interesting.
And then
what about like I'm thinking like a teddy bear or like humanoids.
He's not that into it. He's a little bit. He sometimes plays with them, but he has plays with them, but it's like as far as archetypal goes, like these are always like if you have these three things, like he's in. Okay. Like, it doesn't
maybe it's I'm thinking more of like a feminine, like little girls will like humanoids.
That's what I hear.
That's the theory of Simon Baron-Cohen in the Emotional Quotient. Is that little girls like sort of the humanoids and the tea parties and the like. Yeah, you're gonna kiss you and you're gonna marry you and you're gonna this and
yeah, that is like like
it's a different way of playing.
Yeah, and he has done that. Yeah, like he does do that. It's just like as far as archetype goes, like he's always into these three, and then the other stuff is it like comes and goes.
There's the story of like if you give girls trucks, they'll have tea parties with the trucks, and if you give boys dolls, they'll do soldiers with the dolls, sort of thing. Like they'll find their method of play with whatever toy you give them.
Yeah, he doesn't do soldiers.
No, he's probably a little bit too young for soldiers and armies, but it may happen. But that's the like male coded violence. Yeah. Well, it's also probably you're raising him in an environment with less exposure to violence because you're not all that into it. So
yeah, like he do wrestle sometimes. Like sometimes he'll pick a fight and then to wrestle.
It's like he will pick a fight with you.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's like he knows I have certain triggers. Like if he'll get me and then I'll go. So like sometimes
you've made the game there.
Yeah. Sometimes he'll just run away. I wasn't even chasing him.
Right. He just decided what he's gonna do is run.
Yeah, but he does like the running, like the giggle run.
Yeah. I am running away now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently saw some research on when dogs are fighting, there's a like looking at each other in the face that reaffirms. I was reading polyvagal theory stuff, and so you can be like play fighting, and then dogs will like stop and look at each other, and that like co-regulates whether it is like a real fight or a play fight.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's very interesting. You need to like have these moments where you pause and then you like keep going.
Yeah, we do
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because that's something I'm still doing consciously.
Yeah.
But it's
right, because play can turn to like from like if you're like silly chasing him and then he starts running onto the road, that can suddenly turn into a very dangerous situation.
right.
So you need to like obviously he needs to keep checking that it is safe to play.
Yeah, so there is the back and forth check-in, right? And as well for me, because it's like I don't want to go right, because like there is boundary, like there is, I mean, I think of it as boundary violations, but there is like you can go too far and like yeah, like because like let's say tickling, right? So like there's a certain amount of tickling that's really good. And then and then past that, you don't want to like it's not fun anymore. And so like
well for both sides, yeah.
Well, you can get carried away, right? Like so you got to be careful with that.
I mean, I've also witnessed like tickling and then you accidentally scratch someone, and it's like that was fun until it wasn't. And I remember being on the receiving side of that.
Right. Like, so that happens sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
That happens sometimes, but it's pretty rare that happens.
Well, I also I was explaining this
although
week
he
to
does
someone.
Bite me sometimes. He gets too riled up.
Right. It doesn't. I'm of the opinion it doesn't matter so much if something goes wrong, but what matters is if you effectively repair it.
Yeah.
So if you accidentally bump a kid and the kid falls over and starts crying, that bit doesn't matter as much as the bit where you go and apologize and check if they're okay and like repair.
Yeah.
Like 10 times more important than the original. Like mistakes will happen, but as long as we repair them, it's like okay still. But if you fail to repair, then it's like big black mark. Sort of like very bad.
So yeah, because like it's really like the main thing that you're looking at is that the relationship is good, right? So is it like, do they feel safe with you? Can they come to you for help? Or is the default that they're open and trusting and going to let you do the things you need to do, or is the default against? And like it does switch sometimes. Like there was like a month or so where I was like getting him ready for school, and I was doing like a little trickery to get his shoes on. And so he was like, okay, I'm not gonna, like in the morning he would know not to get too close to me because I'm just gonna grab him and put his shoes on.
Right, so you set yourself up there, right? You tried to do a trick and then like it came back to haunt you.
Right, but the thing is, like, it's most of it is tricks. It's just beyond his capability of understanding, because I'm not like I can't say, okay, we're gonna go to school, so I need you, like let's get ready. And I mean, now I can do that more, but at the beginning I couldn't, because it's like too conceptual, right? Like he doesn't have what to relate to.
Right, but if you had like, was there a way? Who knows? Was there a way to get him to cooperate with you putting on the shoes and stuff?
Right. So now it's much better, because it's there's a certain amount of, like, as parents you have to just lose battles sometimes, which is weird, but like he has to win sometimes, or he has no leverage in the relationship.
Right. If you always control what he does or then he's just feels disempowered.
If I always get my way, then like it's, because
you also teach him to
win every time if I wanted to.
You also teach him that like the way to be is to always get your way, which is a stubbornness that you don't really want to train into any human. It's not healthy. Yeah,
that's true as well. I hadn't thought of that part.
So you want to demonstrate, the co-relationship and like co-regulating and working on ways to everyone gets what they want.
Yeah, and putting the relation, like our relationship is more important than him going to school in the morning. right? And I have him miss a whole day of school if I rather than not have a good relationship with him.
Right.
I just care much more about the relationship than
Well, one
the
thing I also
school.
think about is like, I want to be able to trust the kid, that even though I may not understand why the kid doesn't want to go to school today, I should trust that there's, at least to a certain extent, there's something behind what they want, even if it's a silly want. I should at least hear out the want.
Right.
I should at least validate the want, and
Right.
that sets me up for the future of the kids saying, "Hey, there's a problem here," and me going, like, "Okay, we take seriously when you say so, uh,
Yeah.
and then let's work with it."
Yeah. It's not this age, it's not always like the thing they're saying, because it's like they don't have they don't have so many concepts and are able to express them. So it's not really, but it's like, yeah, like if he's not
He can't trust you if he's not
yeah,
open.
if he can't trust me, if he can't, like, if he's, then just everything is just harder.
Right.
And like, that's not, you don't want to live that life, and you don't want your kid to grow up in that environment where they can't
Right.
trust their parents. So it's very, yeah, it's like getting your priorities straight, right? Like, because again, like the other thing is like that, like we were talking about before, like the relationship, like making up whatever he misses in school is a lot easier than to like repair a relationship.
Like repair abandonment or something. Like, oh
Yeah.
my God. It's also, I think, kids do this thing where problems get buried. Like
Yeah.
effective strategy for getting rid of a problem is to like deny it and hide it and bury it for until you're like a late teenager, and then you've like buried so many things that, like, it's like if you imagine like a rug, but everything is underneath the rug, and so there's all these lumps, and you're like, why, what's wrong with this rug? And then you like pick it up and you're like, whoa, all of my stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
But
all
like
that shit comes out, and then
right, but you can sweep a couple of things on the rug, but they do it like almost automatically. They sweep things under the rug if
they don't do it automatically. I've
no?
noticed that
Okay.
it's automatic at a certain point, but there's like an escalation,
Okay.
right? Like,
well, I mean, you raise a good point. I'd be curious if like I've seen people and I've seen kids sweep things under the rug, but now I wonder if that was a learned behavior from the environment. Obviously, this is a while ago and like sort of all in my memory, so I can't really go check. But I do, makes me wonder if the sweep under the rug strategy was a learned behavior from those adults who have been sweeping things under the rug, and sort of, and the kids worked out that's what you do.
Yeah, so there is that, but there is that automatic, but like that's after a certain point,
right?
Where it's like you got to really like deny that, like you got to like really like, because I feel it, right? Because like I still,
as in like you feel it when he's agitated or something, or
yeah, like like sometimes we're doing stuff and like I'm just like maybe not a tune with him as it should be, or whatever, and like there is a certain amount of I guess, what do you call it, like roughness in the relationship that happens sometimes,
like submisattunement, submissing each other,
like bumping up against each other, right? Where it's like we have different, like I'm like, okay, I gotta drop off the kids, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta do that, and he's like, oh, nature is beautiful and trees.
Right. And so those two things don't really like automatically fit together. They kind of like resist.
And so there's a certain amount of having to like having to connect and I guess share your needs and
well, I imagine you're doing much of the translating, so
negotiate,
find his needs, work out your needs, and then like negotiate internally for yourself how you're going to help you get him to where you need to go.
No, so I used to do that more, but now he's much older now, and so he's there with me, right? Like for my newborn, I'm doing that, right? Like we're not really negotiating. It's like we're both very hard line, right? Like, or he's very hard line, right? He's very like, I need food now, I need sleep now, I need to be soothed now, right? Like there's not a lot of
wiggle room
for negotiating. But there's like, like I can sleep on my, like you can hold me while I sleep, or you can swaddle, like maybe, but there's not a lot of room negotiating. But with him, it's it's like he's already at that stage where, like, I think he's aware. It's hard to tell what he's aware of exactly, but like he does participate in the relationship, my oldest.
Mm.
And he's let's say 1 3/4 or close to 2. And so he does negotiate the relationship, and like I can come up with a brilliant plan, but if he's not on board with it, it doesn't matter. Right. Because then it's just me enforcing a thing. And so there is a certain amount of like we're doing stuff, and then we hit like a block, like we hit something
Like,
where he's like,
I have an idea. You should go play in the sand over there. Like he doesn't want to, like, man.
Yeah, so some of that time, like we have gone to the park and with the shovel, and then he's like trying to dig things. I'm like, oh, if we just like go, like 30 seconds there, then there's like a nice sand pit you can like dig in. And so,
But he's not on board with that. He wants to dig here and now.
So
and
it's not that he's not on board. He doesn't necessarily understand
that there's a sand pit over there, right?
Yeah, like the first time he didn't understand.
Right.
But then we go to the park, and like then he remembers that there's a digging place there.
Right.
So, and like you don't want to fight him, right? Like I see some parents
right.
like,
I can imagine like I'm gonna force
fun.
you to the digging spot, to the sand pit, and then he's gonna get there, and then he's gonna cry, just cry constantly.
Yeah, he's not gonna be.
And he's like, but I wanted to dig over there. And I'm just like, all right.
Yeah,
This is pointless. I regret even.
I'll tell you, like dating and marriage, like it really prepares you for this stuff.
As in like negotiation, interpersonal stuff.
Yeah, like having to especially like pregnant women, like having to like live with a pregnant woman for 9 months, like it really sets you up to like, oh, kids are not that hard. It's a bit of a joke, but it's also pretty true. Like there just is a lot of like,
well, I think there's probably even more truth to what you're saying than you realize, because this kid or this kid's personality is going to be made up of yourself and your partner's sort of like stuff, all kind of mushed together and mixed together, which means that like, yeah, everything you're learning when you are doing the dating and relationship game as an adult is preparing you to like find workable solutions for working with little versions of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so interesting because like I thought a lot of like the dating stuff. I'm like oh, like you have to like do all this stuff or else like women aren't going to be into you, and it's like super annoying. And then like you get there like to the parenting, and you're like, oh, like I get why they're doing all that. Like
right, as in they
give you all these shit tests.
The women want you to be strong and fit, so that, and then when you have a kid, you're strong and fit,
it's
and
not
then
like
you can like
have
a good time with the kid.
It's not exactly just, so there is a strong,
but it's like unconscious, right?
No, yeah. Well, it's hard to say.
They're not necessarily conscious of like why they want you to be strong and fit and good looking.
Right.
But
no.
Then
so,
like.
No, so it's not what I'm talking about. So there's like strong and fit, and like as a man, I'm like, oh, I get why I need, like I want the men I'm around to be strong and fit as well, right? Like that, and I have no interest in reproducing with them. It's
right,
or having sex with them.
You
right?
just want to have people around you that are well resourced.
Yeah, because like okay, like whatever we're gonna do, we're gonna be doing stuff, and so we need to be. There's a certain level of like being able to do things that you need to be at. That part I get, and like that's the thing that like as a man, like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do cool shit and I'm gonna show off, right? So if you think of like the guys doing skateboard tricks to impress the girls, like that I totally get, right? Or like lift heavy weights, like look how strong I am, and you show off in the girl, right? Like that I totally like, that makes sense to me. Like, okay, like girls like that, and I get it.
Is that like I can demonstrate that I can commit to doing a thing, learning a thing, and then I can like perform the thing, and therefore you can demonstrate long-term
impressive and not
impressive adherence to a goal over the period of time.
No, it's like actually impressive, like that. Like this is a rare skill, a rare thing to do,
right?
Like, but
for the skill's own benefit, and also for your ability to have pulled off the learning process.
Like, look at me, I'm cool. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Right, like, and like I get that, like it, like when you do the juggling, I'm like, oh, that's very cool, like that's well coordinated, and that's impressive that you can do that.
I think there's like a lot of society requires you to commit to something for a long period of time.
Get why women like clowns. Like,
wait a second. Yeah.
Because
I mean, I'm also doing the other side for like, oh, what does the masculine want from the feminine? Like, what does the masculine want the feminine to be able to demonstrate
No. So I'm going
as well?
somewhere, right? I'm
Yeah.
going
Keep
somewhere with
going.
this.
Keep going.
So I'm saying, so there's like the male side of like dating, where it's just like all the things is like my natural male brain has decided that this is the things I should do to impress women.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, like that'll make sense to me. But then or like big muscles, right? Like if you're like, oh, look at my arms, they're very strong.
Mhm.
They're like very big, right? Like I get that. But then there's like all the stuff that the women want, like, oh, I need you to listen to my feelings and like tell me sweet things and like clean up or something. I don't know, whatever it is that they want, right? Like craziness. um, like that all like kind of a lot of that stuff translates to parenthood,
Right.
of like can you be meticulous about things every single day? Can you be soft and sensitive? Because like you can't just like strong arm your way out of parenting. Like, like it doesn't matter how strong you are. If the kid's crying, like you need to be there. You need to be sensitive.
You can try and yell at them to not cry, but you don't actually help their development. You just get them to stop crying.
Yeah, like you've done it, but at what cost? Like it's not worth it.
Right. You haven't actually done the versatile parenthood. You've just resolved the crying problem temporarily.
But and you've made it like worse down the line. And so there is something of like bringing like it's almost the same skill set of bringing out the like that femininity.
Yeah.
Because like there's a thing dating, like if you do it right, like you bring out this like pure feminine love kind of.
Yeah, there's
like
I have a friend who talks about alpha beta mix. So the femininity is coded to like the alpha male, the like strong, assertive, blah blah blah. And then there's the beta male, which is more like soft, sensitive. And what you actually want, if you kind of like look at the dating dynamic, you want to kind of be an alpha beta mix. So you want to have some of that strong assertive. And then at other moments, you want to like be soft and generous and kind. But obviously, you're never going to get right what you're going to do.
No.
But you want to have access to all the things.
No, I think alpha beta referring to something else.
Oh, no, not alpha beta like that. Like if you, I guess if you use the terms alpha beta as like from like animals rather than from like pickup, like from like animals, like leader of the main lion is the alpha lion, and then there are other lions around. Like you need to sometimes do this type of dynamic and sometimes that type of dynamic, or the like.
This is okay. So I think the thing you're trying to, I wouldn't use this language to describe this thing that I think you're trying to point to, but I think the thing you're trying to point to is I've seen this there's this really good lecture series on YouTube of like game theory and like animal and like evolution.
Okay. Is this like Robert Sapolsky or something?
Maybe, yeah.
It sounds like him.
It sounds familiar, and it's freaking amazing. And so he talks about that the like the two different mating strategies essentially, so there's it's much more complicated, but to oversimplify, there's like that alpha, what you're calling like the alpha beta. So there's essentially he describes it as a winner takes all, and then or versus distribution. So something like lions, or really it's any animal that has a strong sexual dimorphism, so where the male and the female look very different, it tends to be a winner take all mating strategy. So it's like one man will get one male will get a lot of females, or all the females. And then there's something like meerkats where they have or a lot of the birds where they have the males and the females look very similar. And so like from a human perspective, it's very hard to tell them apart. And that tends to be like more monogamous or mating for life.
Right.
So they like, so, and the strategies are different, right? So for the alpha, it's like your competition is, for the winner takes all, your competition is the other males, because one of you guys is getting everything. And so you need to be the strongest or the best fighter or whatever it is that it is to be able to beat everyone else. And for the other, for the more distributed result, you need to be you need to like be able to take care of the female and to take care of the kids, because like that's where you're getting. That's where it's coming from. So I guess what you're saying is like these strategies are sort of a mix.
Well, the ideal might actually be a mix rather than like the trouble with the strong alpha. If like women like the bad boy, he's got the leather jacket and the motorbike, yeah,
right?
But then he's about to drive off into the sunset, right?
And that's like Twitter is not Twitter. Tinder is very much like that,
right?
Where it's like very winner take all. Where there's like a very
apparently the good looking people get many
get
dates,
all the
women, and
that's
it, right? So
yeah.
So the problem with the alpha strategy is that it's not actually, the women like it, and then or like theoretically the feminine likes it and then like loses out later when he rides off on that motorbike into the sunset. And so
it's different strategies, right?
Right.
Like,
right. But the idea of the beta is like lame. He hasn't got the sex appeal of the alpha. But to be able to have like a bit of each kind of makes you an ideal candidate, because you can be tough love and strong, and then you can be softy at other times. Anyway, this is a friend of mine has this theory.
Yeah. I guess that's like a human strategy is like kind of like we need to be able to deal with everything.
Right. Well, this is also like the versatile parent, I guess, is the parent that is well resourced in many different dynamics.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 100% true.
Or the parental partnership where each side has the like covers all bases with the mix of everyone.
Yeah, that's another way to do it. The way we're doing it is I'm primary parent, so I'm doing like most of the childcare. And so I'm doing most of like the child rearing, right, as well. And not to like dismiss my wife, like she does do
of course
stuff over there as well. But like it's kind of like I kind of got to do both. Like I got to be the role model that I want him to see. So like it's like almost imagine like who would I want his dad to be, and like I imagine like who would be a good dad for him that he would be able to learn from. And then I have to do that. And then the second thing is like actually like the actual taking care of him, the actual like actually meeting his needs and actually like setting up the environments. And so there's like a lot of real world stuff of like who he's friends with and school and things like that. So there's like all that maneuvering that needs to be done. And you kind of you got to do that. But I think the other one comes first. Like I think the role modeling is more important than the like right schools or whatever.
Yeah, super interesting, because I'm thinking back to what we said earlier of like concrete, like physical world, then like emotional world. And like you said, he needs to be safe. He needs to be not broken boned, not hit by a car. And then he needs to be not crying, right? So if I have to run on the road and pick him up, and then he starts crying because he wanted to be on the road, then that's fine. And then I can deal with the crying after. But here you're actually saying that your imaginary ideal parent scaffold comes first, and then your actual real world application comes second.
Yeah, but it's different. Like the physical needs are being I when I said that, I assumed that the physical like the immediate needs were being met. It was just like on the more sophisticated level.
I even wonder if it's like you go up the tree and then down the tree. So like physical needs, safety, not crying, like seems to be having a good time and having curious moments. And then like to the ideal of like he's having a magical time in the world. And then like from the possible magical time, we want to like map it down into the world. Like, how does he need to feel it if he's having a magical time? And like, what concrete things do we need to implement to maintain that magical time?
You've switched. So you've gone up like, what does he need?
Up and then down.
And then it's like, how do you think about it?
Yeah.
Essentially. Which are two different.
How do I think about it? And then like, what do I need to do in the world to maintain it?
Yeah. So there is a lot of that, but
super.
But yeah, cool. I think because like there is the parenting of like you get this like the stereotype is the Asian tiger moms where they're like, okay, the kid needs to do this, kid needs to, and then you get this burnt out kid that can't do anything, but
and then you get like
knows all this stuff, and then they
delicately and politely say Asian personality syndrome, where it feels like they get a personality when they get to about 35 or so. This is not like a universal, but like they feel a bit dead for like their 20s, and then later they realize, oh, I can be my own self and do what I want. And then they start building themselves, and they turn out obviously all everyone's life path is their life path, but that's when they start flourishing, is when they can open out and start to choose to do things for themselves.
Right. And having all that background of like all the things that they've done.
Right. The structural, formal, like rigid background is like a really strong backbone.
Right.
It's
so
just,
I'm not a rigid guy, but like the skill sets that they've learned, like if they learn the musical instruments and they learn the math and they learn the schooling and the discipline, then they're able to use that later. So for me, it's like I don't think it's necessary to do that like burnout through the 20s. Like I think that makes that doesn't make sense to do that.
I was raised in a generation of people who were being raised in burnt out modes, and my perspective is that doesn't seem healthy.
Yeah.
And so I would not propagate that to the next generation if given a choice.
Yeah. But, so I'd rather they even be behind a little bit in things than to not be burnt out. Which he's not behind, but I think that happened. I think like part of the reason that he's not behind is because it's like I'm like not pushing him too much. Like it's not pushing him past what he can do. And even the pushing is like, it's more of a doing it together than it is, or like a like presenting the opportunity and waiting for him to be ready to do it.
Okay. I kind of want to know, like, in terms of, I don't know if you exactly put it into words yet, but like parenting philosophy for like right now, if you can try and describe what is my parenting philosophy, given, he's about 2 and there's one that's like 5 weeks old. What do you see yourself as doing or trying to do?
So if you're interested in something specific, you can ask. But I would say the general thing is it's the autonomy. The main thing is the autonomy, because you can't teach autonomy, which is crazy. You can learn autonomy, but you can't teach it.
Okay, so you're trying to scaffold autonomy into their experience.
So he was he was already born with autonomy, like literally like 30 seconds after he was born, he was already trying to do stuff.
Right.
Or 30 seconds after I got him, which would have been like 2 minutes after he was born.
Right. Well, he was already screaming and crying and like there.
Yeah, and then he calmed down and I held him, and then he started like doing his breath. So he started like figuring out how to breathe and then when as soon as he got that, then he was trying to stand, very frustrated. Like he was like 2 days, I think he was like a day or 2 old, and he was already trying to stand, and he wasn't like really strong enough to do that because he's a newborn. They're just not strong enough. And then he got like really frustrated, and like it seems like since then, like he was just like on a very like focused mission to be able to do stuff, to be
able to stand up and run away from me,
to just do everything. And like like his standing and walking, like he was like hardcore trying to do that like before he was ready. And like also like for instance, like he was trying to roll over and he couldn't. At some point he couldn't do it. It was around I think like 2 months. I think they roll over at 3. He was like really close at like 2. But then, and I'm like, no, that's the other way. Okay, so sometimes he like goes and does things, right? And I'm like I don't want him to do those things. And so there's
like he's opening the cupboards, or
so he's like opening cupboards, or he's like running around, or he's like screaming, like play screaming, or he's like throwing balls in the house, or drawing, like he has markers and so he draws sometimes.
Right. And then he draws on the walls a bit.
so we have it set up that he's got a drawing area. On my whiteboard, the lower half is for him.
Right, of course.
And the upper half is for my crazy Psychotechnologies.
Oh yeah.
And then so it's like all that stuff, and like there's like parenting is like you could just like yell at them and then they'll get scared and not do things.
Right.
But you crush their spirit when you do that, and you
end up, now you have a kid with a crushed spirit. Congratulations, your kid has a crushed spirit.
Right.
And then you're like, did I want this?
and then the autonomy, right? Because like parents like think like, oh, when kids hit 18, then they're autonomous and they just leave. And it's like, no, that's not how it works, right? Like you have to be building the autonomy the whole time, or else you don't get it when you're older. And you can't teach that, and you can't like really like people like, because it's not something you can do, right? It's like, oh, autonomy is someone else's autonomy is them doing the thing.
Well, it's kind of like you can't teach.
I can't.
You can't teach someone autonomy by doing it for them. Right?
You just can't, like, you can't,
because autonomy is a them doing it for themselves skill. So that you can't teach it by doing. You could probably teach it by you doing things for yourself and them kind of like watching, but they might not pick that up for a while, and you might have to just keep doing things for yourself while they like notice you doing things for yourself, and hope that they go like, oh, I can do things for myself, and like that, have that like insight moment. But unless you can get them that insight moment, you can't force an insight moment. You can only like keep doing things for yourself.
Right. You can't force insight. You can't force the way you can teach autonomy is essentially you just treat autonomy as random, and then you just set up scenarios where like you reward
the deliberate bits of the random that you like.
Yeah, we'll go in a direction that's positive, and then they'll start to, and then it becomes very obvious to them.
I mean, I can imagine this like kid playing with the ball, kind of throwing it around or like throwing it back, and then one time they throw it to you, and you're like, "Hooray! You threw it to me!" And you're like, "Oh, I just rewarded the little bit of randomness," and so I like hone the randomness to like deliberate autonomy.
Yeah. So that's how you get them to like do the things that you want them to do, but. But then if you're doing it the problem is if you're doing it that way, then you have to do it with everything.
Right.
You have to go around and everything that they could you want them to do, you have to like set it up, and it becomes extremely taxing very quickly, and it's not sustainable. It's like fine for like learning, and if the person has like their spirit and they're already like in the world wanting to do things, then for you to like take some time and just teach them the thing once is like pretty okay. But like that's the thing, is like every time you shut them down, they get shut down.
Right.
And if they're living a life where they're constantly getting shut down, then that's disempowering, and they're not going to be able to, like, long term, they're not going to have that like life energy to do stuff. Or they're going to decide that they're going to choose that over being with you.
Right.
Either way is not great. So you kind of you need to like accept the other person, and that's back to the philosophy of like what's the easiest thing to repair. That's the thing I'm going to let break first. And so, you know, them going to the play place and not playing on the coolest thing is much easier to repair, because we can just go back and then they'll do it again, and then they'll play the next time. But them learning how to do something from a difficult situation,
like them being forced to hurry up to get to the play place, right? You might teach them that they have to hurry past.
Yeah, if you're going to break the relationship in the process, or if you're going to invalidate their experience, or if you're going to you know, like depress them, right? Or like essentially like cause them to like not want to do things, not want to be in the world, like that's so much harder. Like that's so much harder to repair than like learning some stupid, like learning how to stack the blocks.
Right, because you have decided that stacking the blocks is the thing they should know, right? Like the thing you should do with blocks is stack them, and my stupid 3-year-old is too stupid to have learned how to stack them yet. Like, wait a second, there's something wrong in me that I'm
like who, like that's the thing, like who gives a shit about anything? Like it's not who gives a shit. Like learning the stuff is important, and like the way, you know, their brain is informative places, and learning actual like skill sets are important, and you want to do it as young as possible. But you don't want to do it at the cost of like,
they never want to play blocks with you ever again.
No, like, they're not going to do. They're not.
Congratulations, they know how to stack blocks, but they don't like doing it with you anymore.
Yeah, but now the relationship is more strained, and now you have to like go farther to get that, and then like, yeah.
Just because you wanted them to see them stack some blocks,
or because there's another parent watching, and like, oh, now my kid is like not stacking blocks. Like now they're gonna think I'm a bad parent, which. I totally get. Like anytime anything happens, I'm like, oh my God, parents are judging me. Are they judging me? I don't know.
But you feel like that.
But my head tells me they are.
Yeah. That's, I mean, I don't know what that's like, but I'm sure there's a lot of like, I'm curious if you see parents competing, like competition. Like if you go to the park, do they also feel like they're being watched?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't. The problem is like, so I've been doing like with the parents, but it's actually like it's only like recently that we've been able to actually like I've been able to hang out with the parents in the park.
Right, because
Most
you've
of the
been busy with
time,
him. He's
yeah,
been a bit
like we
young.
went to the like the science center once a couple months ago. But it with like a bunch of the parents in the school, but it wound up just being they're all like we wound up just like having to all like take care of our kids.
Right.
Also, it was like a bad time. It was like close to nap time.
Mm.
So that didn't work out as well. But like it's like only recently went to the park. He's got a best friend now.
Ah,
Yeah, a best like friend who's a boy. Who's also got like a girlfriend. Who's she's like Chabad from like this like religious family. So it's pretty funny.
great.
um but yeah, so like finally like they're going to the park and they're playing together, and then I can hang out with the parents and we just watch them. And
Mm.
like it's so interesting because there is all this like feeling out the parents of like, well, I like it when my kid just runs off to the sunset and does whatever they want. But like I don't want to get like CA or the child services um called on me.
Hmm.
So and but like I feel like also they're doing that a little bit as well, where they're like not, you know, maybe a little insecure as well, and like they're feeling me out, and so we're like feeling each other out of, you know, how far do we go, in what ways, and like
Mm.
to what injury, like how much injury risk are we going to take? So like he like
Yeah. I
so
do
like
think
some
that
parents,
making friends as a parent is different to making friends as I was in primary school or high school or university. Like it's just a different thing.
yeah.
Very different thing.
With the parents, it's actually it's very different because it's not about like with making friends. There's always something in the middle, right? Like there's
Like a
always like some
common
excuse
interest.
why you guys are together,
Right.
right? So it's like, oh, we're part of the same bowling league and then we become friends, or we're part of the community dinners, or we're part of, and so there's always something that you guys are like have brought you together,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Um and um
But as a parent, it's like,
yeah, so for the parents it's like the kids are there, right? And so like the kids are there and like that's the priority, right? Like and I'm not really interested in being friends with a parent
just
whose
because they're
priority is
there.
not that.
Right.
Right,
That's true. Yeah.
right, like it's like if like it's not like if they need help or something, like I'll be happy to coach parents that are like that. But like I'm not gonna be friend like I'm not gonna be friend like I don't want to hang out casually with people who are like their priorities, not their kids. But and then so you kind of like you got to display like the priorities to kids, but like a lot of time, like most of the time, you're not doing anything because like the kids, if you're doing it right, you're not doing anything because the kids are just playing.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. And then they fight sometimes too, so you gotta like,
Oh, like the two kids get in an
yeah,
argument.
like they're
Like, I want to
friends,
be taller up the structure than you.
or one of them
Man.
has the ball, the other one wants it, or like one of them is like his friend is he's like a little aggressive sometimes with the wrestling kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, which is a little weird, but it is what it is. Our kids are weird. And so there's like fighting, and like so for me, I'm like, okay, like I don't mind him like fighting or like having to deal with fighting with people his age, because like that's something that you need to learn how to deal with.
Hmm.
Like if an adult like fights, like if not an adult, adults never fought with him, but if like
If like a
he's like
10-year-old comes and pushes him over
10-year-olds have
because,
never not really fought with him, but like 4, 5, 6-year-olds have,
right.
right, where they like start to pick a fight. And he's also like he's bigger and he looks older than he is. So
Right.
sometimes like, but even if he like the other day there was like he had like conflict with a 3-year-old, and
Hmm.
but they're like around the same size. So I'm like, okay, like let's see how this goes. All right.
Hmm.
Because I'd rather they learn how to resolve it themselves than interfere. But like then it kind of, then I'm afraid of looking neglectful, even though I'm paying attention and ready to jump in.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think I've talked myself into a circle.
Yeah. It also sounds like that sense of feeling fried is coming back.
Yeah.
Like running out of energy. Like, yeah, this has been a very interesting like reflection on being a parent and what it's like being a parent.
Yeah, I hope that was sensical. I feel like it was just like ranting and just like going off at times.
I feel like we've been on tangents, but also they've all been connected and they've all been like rather interesting along the way. Different parenting theories.
Yeah, and this is like a lot of this stuff is like the self-talk that I'm like when I'm trying to figure all this stuff out by myself. So I don't even know if this like that's the other thing is like if you're doing all this stuff by yourself, it's how off base are you, right? Like you don't know,
right?
Like I could be like completely wrong. It's like, oh, actually, parenting is just this one simple trick, and you just everyone knows it, and that's why you've never seen it written down before.
Yeah, I do think we don't teach parenting enough. Like it's a thing we just assume that people know how to do it, and that's it.
But that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of this, like in the psychotech or metamodern space, where it's like, oh, we don't teach this, we don't teach that, and I'm like, good, because if they taught it, they would
probably teach it wrong. Absolutely, but it's also like, it's tricky because on the one hand, I think there could be some basics, and this is like
attachment style is taught. Like that's like pretty. Like I go to the early on, or I used to go to the early ons, which are like it's like drop-ins for little kids,
right?
And like they do attachment style stuff, and they don't like physically show you how to do it. They just talk about it,
right?
Which is like the thing.
But
like that's the thing. If I were to do like a psychotechnology parenting course, it would be very like light on the like words education stuff. Like we just would be like, okay, attachment style, this is approximately what it is. And now we're just going to do it with you and we're going to show it to you.
We're going to sit in a circle of 10 people and go like, who in this room are you strongly attached to? And who are you like avoidant of?
No,
not
that's
even
not how
that.
I do it.
How would you teach?
I would get all the kids and all the
with the kids. Okay.
And the kids would just do stuff.
Yeah.
And then we would, we'd escalate. So first we'd like start inside with like just normal toys, and we'd see, and we just like talk about what we're experiencing while we're watching our kids. And then you like escalate, you go outside on the grass and you watch them and like you talk about that. And then you go outside like with slides and gravel and rocks. And they like bicycles on like a little bit of a hill, like the dangerous things that toddlers do. Not or even, I mean, eventually maybe even like near traffic or something, like in parking lots or something, but that one is a little far. But and then you just do that, like you just work with them there, like, oh, they're like your nervous system is being activated, like let's all right, like co-regulate ourselves. And that I think would not be taught well in like the school system. That would be like something we would have to do.
Like I imagine there's basics, like someone out there is a parent who hasn't worked out to feed their kids healthy food or something. And like Daniel doesn't need that. But that should definitely be in any syllabus of like what should kids be eating.
Yeah, that would be cool, actually.
But like, but it only matters for the people who are like, and then there's another area like how much time should kids have on TV or computer, and that should definitely.
The answer they give is 0.
Right, but if that information isn't there, like Daniel doesn't need to know that, but someone else does.
Yeah, so that stuff is out there. I don't know about the healthy foods. I think they do. They do.
Food is also hard.
I think they do talk,
but it's like if I really think of like what are the basics of like the really, really, really basics. Okay, keep your kid warm, dry, safe, not loud, not like keep the kid fed. That's like we're almost like the basics of Maslow's pyramid, maybe. And
yeah, so the thing is like kids are like there's newborns which are like when you get them outside in the hospital, like there's like a little bit of learning.
Right.
But like past that, they're just humans. So it's like, what are all the things you need to do?
But they're humans that don't know the world at all, right? So what do you need to do to take care of like a human that's new here? Or like new to like this bit of life and that bit of life and every bit of life.
Right. So it's all the things that you need to do to take care of yourself and your spouse.
Right.
Like you need to do that with kids.
Right.
And it's just like, yeah, it's like that's what you're doing. Like you're just doing all that, just like less sophisticated, essentially. It's like what if they couldn't understand it? Like yeah. But like you get that in relationships as well. Like there's sort of often a regression or like a playfulness, like like sometimes, it's like, well, it feels like we're kids again, right? And like you have that in like your private intimate moments. And so if you do that well, then you're just doing that, but with kids, like with actual kids. That comes back down to like that feminine, like drawing out and like engaging with that feminine energy of like that playful, like kiddiness.
I expect that the other one is engaging with the masculine energy. You're just like being yourself and doing whatever you want to do with the other person.
Right. Yeah.
And that's like, and as long as you have both of those, you're having a good time.
Yeah. And you
like
just,
access to both of them.
Yeah, it's just have them a lot. Like you're just doing that. Like it essentially like the parenting, like it winds up being like you're just living life and you're living it with a little person that you like, that you love, who acts like they're on psychedelics all the time. Psychotechnologies live.